This week, we are taking a look at spirituality, perhaps challenging what we think about it, and hopefully giving us a healthier relationship with it. A lot of people have said to me that they are spiritual, but not religious, which can mean anything from they like yoga, to they feel uplifted by music or art, to they have one of those incense burners in their hallway. Whatever the reason, in many people's minds, spirituality is separate from religion. This separation of religion and spirituality isn't all bad. It certainly allows people to explore different paths that are open to them, to find out which language they more naturally speak. I know that I communicate with God in a different way when I'm out for a walk than when I'm at choral evensong. Just as different contexts and activities inspire and enliven our intimate personal relationships, so too do we need to engage with our faith in different and varied ways. But the emphasis on spirituality as having nothing to do with religion has had some negative side effects. Chiefly among them, I would say, are having made spirituality two things that it certainly shouldn't be: unattainable and egotistical. Firstly, we're in danger of seeing spirituality, or being spiritual, as something that is unattainable. Spirituality isn't about reaching an impossible state of enlightenment, neither is it the search for an ethereal, outer-body, otherworldly experience. The exercising of our spiritual life is something that should be as natural as exercising the mind or the body. Part of the problem is that spirituality has been disconnected from what we do with ourselves. It's much more helpful to have a holistic understanding of ourselves as human beings, mind, body, and soul. Just as our mental and physical health are closely interconnected, so our spirituality is not disconnected from our body or mind. To exercise our spirituality is to recognize the unity of mind, body, and soul, and encourages and acknowledges that we are more than just the sum of our parts. It's to pay attention to the inner voice of conscience, to exercise humility, to redress the balance of our lives in silence and contemplation, to nurture the deeper parts of ourselves. And religious practice can work like an exercise routine. Religious practice takes account of the fact that we're human beings with bodies, minds, and souls. When we kneel or stand or bow, when we recite a prayer or sing, we are acknowledging the part that our bodies play in the spiritual life. We're realizing spiritual expression in a physical, attainable way. In being obedient to a discipline like fasting or praying at a certain time, we're using our bodies to tune into something higher than ourselves. When we study the world, the scriptures, and our thoughts, we're acknowledging the role that our minds have in our search for God. Religious practices help us to engage with the spiritual life in a practical and accessible way. The fruit of the spiritual life may be peace, wisdom, enlightenment, and personal growth, but the roots of the spiritual life are in the deep soil of discipline and devotion. But while spirituality is concerned with the inner life, it isn't self-obsessed. Spirituality shouldn't be egotistical, but should shift our focus from ourselves to God and His image in our neighbour. People on a spiritual quest are normally trying to find out something more about themselves, and a healthy dose of self-knowledge is a very good thing. But when our soul-searching becomes all about how wonderful, special, and unique we are, we run into a bit of a problem. Spiritual reflection is not an excuse to be self-indulgent. Spirituality shouldn't take us away from other people, but towards them. A spiritual experience might lead to a feeling of joy or peace, and while it could be deeply personal, it should lead to more than self-fulfillment. Having a spiritual experience, whatever that looks like, should never be an end in itself. Archbishop Michael Ramsey wrote, that the effect of the mystical experience is not to cause a person to long to have the experience again and again, but rather to long to serve God and to do His will. Those who have such a mystical experience will not want to tell everyone about it. They will instead have a longing to serve God in daily life, and in His will is our peace. The spiritual life is not found merely in ourselves. Before it is anything else, it's a humble search for God, which leads us to serve others. This journey is best shared with others. The 58th chapter of the Rules of St. Benedict tells us that when a monk enters a monastery, a senior monk is appointed to watch over him. This is not a way which we have to follow on our own. Make sure you seek out the companionship of someone who's wiser and more experienced than you as you start down this path. A religious community is a great place to find such a companion. For many people, spirituality is about mindfulness, and religion is about the mindless following of a dogma, but the two are meant for each other. Spirituality stops religion from being dry and meaningless, and religion prevents spirituality from being disconnected from reality. When spirituality is grounded in religion, it's neither unattainable nor egotistical, but it's an important affirmation of the self as a unity of body, mind, and spirit, one that is intimately connected to God and to our neighbours. Religious practice and thought doesn't need to be a hindrance in our spiritual life. Instead, it should help us to enact a realistic spirituality, which helps us to be more fully human and inspires us to serve others.